Hello, hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to another episode of Teach Jenn Tech. And we are doing more Android stuff today. I am very excited for this, probably a little too excited. But Zachary, please introduce yourself and what we're going to be talking about today.
Sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Zachary. I am basically now within DevRel, but I was an Android developer for sort of 10 years exclusively. I still do Android development in my free time, and it's just something that's never going to get away from me. So, we're here today to kind of have another look at an Android application, how we can actually build an app, and all that sort of fun stuff.
It's going to be great. And as of right now, so that way y'all get caught up, I have a few things I need to post in. And hello, Ryan, that I need to post in the chat because we have last week's stream, then we have um, using tablet screen share and also how to put debugging mode, which is pretty funny that it's from Verizon.
Yeah, that was quite funny. It's a pretty generic steps like for any Android device. It's just that was the first one that came up and it was clear. So good job, Verizon, I guess.
I like it. And so that way everyone knows there are all of the fancy links and working through the install at the moment, which happens to be taking forever.
So what we can do is we can kind of start by looking at the code if you'd prefer, and then once that is all done and happy, then we can run setup. And just like
Cool.
that, it's finished. But
Yes,
let,
we have
I think
another one. We have another one. All
not
right.
yeah, not that one. That was if you're using Mac ports. We don't need to
Oh,
do that
very
step.
good. Very
You
good.
should be
Okay.
able to just run screen copy, and it should work.
Let's find out.
Assuming your tablet's plugged in.
It is plugged in and it's getting a charge. So,
Excellent. Hey, of course. Yeah, okay. So on the tablet, there should be a little pop-up that's come up.
oh,
You might need to unlock it, and it should say something along the lines of, "Do you want to allow this device to do things?"
oh,
There you
hey.
go. And
Very
that is
exciting. Yes, I
your
put my calendar as my home screen.
and you can actually also control it with your mouse. So it kind of works both ways. So you can use your mouse to kind of move about, click on things, and all that sort of stuff.
This is quite
So
entertaining.
I find this incredibly useful when I'm presenting. If I'm at a conference or something, it's just a lot nicer to be able to physically present something. I work with communication APIs, so being able to actually send a text message and show it come up on the screen and that sort of stuff is a really great tool.
Yes. Yes, this
And
is so fun.
and like all good tools, it's also open source. So
Yes, yes, and it took us what, 20 minutes to install on
yeah,
everything. We did get started, but these are the steps that we went through. So that was just shared in the chat. Let me know, everyone, if you need us to reshare it. I will change all of my tabs. And if I remember correctly, this was one that didn't want to zoom in. We are using Android Studio to be able to build our app.
yes, indeed. And I think last time we did create this login activity project, which we can open and we can use that as our kind of basis to have a look through. I think there's quite a lot that gets generated for you when you create a new project, and
Mhm.
it's I think it'll be interesting to go through and kind of explain the different areas what build makes up an app, because there's quite a lot that makes up an app.
Really funny. I just saw that I got a notification and I'm like, didn't I turn on do not disturb on this thing? How do I y'all, this is what I find pretty funny is as you guys can look at this with me. I don't care. As I am like how do I do all of this? Because I am an iPhone, Mac user through and through. I have been for years. Catch the other stream if you want to hear why. Um, and me trying to learn how to do this, but I'm like, didn't I put it on Do Not Disturb? Notifications. You are on Do Not Disturb. Turn on. Okay. Yes, you are the Android gang. I dig it. I'm getting there. I am. And just to make sure, this is the Android Studio that we were using, right? That we downloaded.
Correct.
Okay, I
Yes.
just want to make sure I relink it. So that way everybody sees what we are using. Hey, okay. So going back, so many tabs. Oh, well, hey, I clicked it. That works.
There you go.
It just magically happened for us.
Brilliant. So we'll just let it, there we go. And get rid of the tip. Yeah, just you can click the, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so this is the whole kind of hierarchy, the whole tree of files that's just been completely generated for you. What we can do, let's try and make it a little bit more streamer friendly. So if you click on the Android Studio tab on the top menu and then go to preferences, there is a appearance and there is a where is it? Oh yeah, use custom font. So sort of, yeah, if you tick that and then you can kind of increase the font size a little bit, and that'll make it slightly more probably streamer friendly.
We will make it giant.
This is probably actually my biggest annoyance with. It might be a little bit
Maybe a little too big. Maybe a little too big.
This is actually, yeah, this is one of the big annoyances of if I ever do any live coding on stage, trying to get this set up properly. I don't know. It's always an absolute nightmare to do, but we'll get there. And then yeah, you should be able to kind of move it about a little bit and then just drag that so it takes up a bit more of the screen.
Yay.
Cool.
Okay. We have been set up, and I think it's the because on VS Code it is like expanding and with the command plus and minus, and on this app it expands all of the
Folders. Yeah.
folders instead. And what up, Jeremy? Thank you for joining today. Jeremy is a fellow streamer. We met on a Twitter space because that's how I meet way too many people, I think.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right.
Excellent.
So
okay,
we chose, I believe we decided to make this a tablet one when we chose our options.
Yes. And so basically, this is kind of what you're presented with. Any app that you make, you're going to have these kind of two top level sections. You've got the app, and then you've got the thing called the Gradle Scripts. So we can have a quick look at the Gradle Scripts if you kind of click on that and expand that side of it. And what these files, these are just literally the build process, the scripts that control actually taking all your app code and making it into the file that people can install.
Okay.
So if you have a look at you've got two build.gradle files, and if we have a look at the top one, this kind of defines basically the plugins that we're using, the kind of top level areas of code that we're using, which is kind of a lot like in say like Node.js or something. You'll have like quite a high level, or if you're using like React, you'll have the React component, and then you'll have like other third-party libraries and stuff. So here you can see we literally have a Android application plugin, an Android library, and the Kotlin library. So the real like just the absolute core bones of a system that we would need. And then in our other build Gradle file is then kind of all the configuration about our app. So things like you've got the package name there, the namespace. So com.example.login activity for TJT, which we set up last time when you were creating the application, and other config informations like SDK numbers. So Android, one of the big issues with Android is there's lots of versions of Android, and these are broken down into SDK versions as developers. For end users, they'd know it as like ice cream sandwich and jelly bean and whatever. But for us, it's numbers. So we're saying we're going to target the SDK 32, which is kind of the newest stable version. And we're going to require that the device we install it on has at least SDK 22, which I think translates to, I want to say ice cream sandwich, but I might be wrong.
And as a pause really quick there, y'all, for those joining in on my journey of building my Twitter tagging thing, is what I'm calling it, Twitter tagging thing.
I like it.
Is after I get it working with React, Zachary and I were actually talking offline about how I could replace React with the Android app to be able to make it an Android app later on. So I have found the app that I want to make as super complicated as possible and make it in different ways. So I will be doing that later on. I just wanted to, you talking about the SDK reminded me that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this later on too.
Excellent. So yeah, no, that's this is literally where we are going to set kind of all these kind of configurations things, and then we have the dependencies, which this section is basically the libraries that we're installing in our application. So these are all the things that we just kind of get for free that come as this config, but perhaps you're going to use some custom libraries. You know, someone's created something, or maybe there's an SDK or something that you want to install. For example, you know, at Vonage, we have an Android SDK, which you could use to then make phone calls and that sort of stuff. So this is where you would define that and say, I want to use this SDK. And so that all then gets pulled in during the process of actually building your app.
Okay.
And then the other files, they're just more config. There's a lot of kind of very technical things that a normal developer probably will never have to touch, certainly in a personal project kind of thing. So I mean, but definitely have a look at them if you fancy it. But you know,
I feel like that's like when I'm installing some type of JavaScript and it comes with the node folder and people are like, don't even worry about like looking at just forget it's there. It's important.
It exists.
But don't touch.
Oh well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. only change things if you know what you're doing, I think is probably
that is the great way of saying it.
That's the Gradle section. And so Gradle is the framework that builds the app. There are a few different frameworks, but this is the one that Google said, no, use this one. This is the de facto way of doing it now. So that's that side of it. And now we can actually kind of look at the app side and probably the much more interesting side of code. So your code is essentially broken into three sections. You've got your manifest, and this is basically how you tell the Android, the operating system, how to use your app. What is available in your app? What can you do?
Okay.
And this is what the manifest is. It's like a table of contents. It's like, you know, that sort of, these are the things that are available. And what you'll see here is you define your activities, which we'll get into, but like see that as kind of a definable section of your app. So you might have an activity for the homepage, an activity for your login page, an activity for, you know, the registration process, those sorts of things. So you define these here to say, these are the things that are available in my app. And then also you're defining here some more details about the app itself. So you can see that you've got on line 9, Android icon, and that's the icon for your application. That's the when you actually install your app, the icon that shows up on the screen. You've got like other bits and pieces there as well. The label for your app, so what comes up underneath the icon, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of config here. Also, if you scroll up to the top of this file, I just don't know if I don't know, it's not. It hasn't got any in here, but this is where you'd also set like permissions. So, because you're not really someone that's used Android so much, I'm not sure how much you know about permissions, but when you, I think it's on iOS as well. So, for example, if an app wants to be able to use your camera, it has to ask you for permission to do that.
Okay.
I think there's normally like a pop-up that
Oh,
says,
yeah.
"Do you
Yeah.
allow this app?" Yeah. So this is where you define the things that you want to be able to ask. So you might say, "Well, I know my app is going to want to be able to use the camera, or maybe it wants to be able to use the microphone or GPS."
Mm-hmm.
And again, you'd add them here so that the operating system, Android, knows these are the things your app might want to use, and then can show the user that sort of pop-up.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And like I noticed that when I clicked into here, was it this one or did I end up oh, it
Yeah.
went to that one. Okay.
Yeah. So what it's trying to do here is be a little clever, which, as always, as we know, most of the time when computers try to be clever, they're not. And essentially, what you see is the at string /name, so app name. So that's actually a reference, like a variable reference to another file somewhere where the actual string is being kept. So when you hadn't clicked off it and it was grey, it was giving you the value of that string as like a
Yeah.
preview, and then you clicked on it and it shows you the actual that. It's confusing and annoying, but we will see where that file is shortly,
I'm
and you'll
like,
be
and
able to
now I'm
see
trying to make it go back to it by like
again. Yeah,
clicking everywhere else.
I don't think you. That's again. This is the other thing. I don't think you actually can. I think you have to close the file and then reopen it again,
Oh,
because
weird. Okay. Well,
again, computers trying to be smart. But it doesn't
it's fine.
matter. We'll see.
It's
We'll,
fine.
we'll look out for that later, and you'll be able to see it. So you've then got these two other folders. You've got Java, and this is where your actual app source code is.
Okay.
So as we sort of talked about last time, Android apps used to be Java.
Mm-hmm.
They're now written in Kotlin.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of one of those oddities that's been left over. Even though the code is Kotlin, it still goes into a Java folder. Or it has to go into a folder called Java.
Okay. And y'all, I will repost this again. What up, Huck? Um, it's some things that we went through already of Android Studio. Of the first video that we went to, as well as the screen share, which my tablet is plugged in, the debugging, and then the studio that we're using to get y'all caught up. It will be in the YouTube videos as well. Oh, well, thank you, Ryan. Ryan's got my back. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And yes, please pause us and let us know if we have if you have questions. Let us know if we
Definitely.
have questions too. I mean, I will probably have questions and may not know how to say them. So please let me know if I have questions as well. And if you're wondering about the going from JavaScript to Kotlin, we did talk about that in last week's stream too.
Cool.
Yeah.
So so in here is going to be where all your source code is. And this is where things get a little bit kind of interesting, shall we say. There until very recently, the Android community could never agree on how they should structure their apps. Like how you should actually kind of have the directories and what you should call the files, and how your app should be kind of structured in a meaningful way. And no one could agree. There was lots of different kind of ways that you could do this, with lots of different people that said they were the best way to do it. Until very recently, because very recently Google said, no, we've finally decided this is the way you're going to do it. So what you'll find, I want to touch on this, because what you'll find is, if you look at other Android apps, if you look at open source projects, they won't always look in the same structure. They'll sometimes have different naming conventions. There'll be different things going on, and that can be a bit of a stumbling block. So you're not losing your mind or thinking that I could have sworn this was done differently, because it was. And there is lots of different ways. So every app will have their code in the Java directory, and inside that will be the name of the package. So we've got dot example, blah, 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 and that'll be different for each app. But then once you're in that, it can be, it's a free-for-all. The developer can decide how they want it to be.
That being said, like, I feel like, hey, homie, I feel like a lot of people use like VS Code just as like their regular go-to. Like VS Code is like a go-to thing. Is Android Studio the same way? Which, if it is, may give things more structure, or is there other like go-tos?
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically the accepted. It's definitely Google's recommended IDE. You should use Android Studio, and I think generally it's the accepted way of doing things. So there is that kind of bonus that if you're going to be an Android developer, you're going to use Android Studio, and therefore there is some level of continuity compared to other like JavaScript or other sort of languages and frameworks that don't have a set IDE.
Okay.
So that is useful, definitely, but that's kind of where the usefulness ends.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But that's fine. So in our package directory in the com.example blah blah blah, we have two subdirectories. We have data and we have UI login. So this app has taken quite actually to the point where I'm considering we start a new app, because this is actually quite they've broken it down in a very detailed way, which is good, but probably not good for your first look at an Android app, because there's a lot of files there and it's probably way more than you need to look at. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this and we are going to start a new application. So if you just basically close out Android Studio, and it should take you back to the like pop-up. Yeah. So we can go new project. And if we go to basic, use the basic activity template. So the one on the top right. Yeah. That should give us a bit of a simpler example.
I'm making this name way too complicated, but I really, really wanted to name it that way. And then remind me, we don't always want to use legacy support libraries.
Yeah, we don't need to. We're not specifically interested in old stuff, so we'll do that. It'll now resort itself out, and if we close the main activity, but when the panel on the left is loaded, you'll see that this is much simpler, and will definitely be a better starting point. So this does come back to my point of different apps do things in such different ways. The app that we had previously was definitely looking at more of a in-depth, granular way of building out an app, which is very good when you're building something for production, and you're going to have different people working on it. It's all going to be very user friendly for a developer. But when we want to just learn about apps, it's not so good. And so it's loaded, and as you can see, there's only 3 files.
Don't show again. Yay. And I found out that I can at least go make this part bigger. That's exciting. And yes, 3 files. That is exciting.
Yeah, much easier to go over. So, like I mentioned, Android has this concept of activities, and activities are the easiest way to think about it. Is it's a self-contained piece of functionality. It's a self-contained thing that your app can do. And you would traditionally start with a main activity, i.e. the entry point into your app. What does the user see when they load your app? And this is what this file is. That is the main activity. And we are now looking at some Kotlin code. So Kotlin is an object-orientated language, which means we have this concept of classes. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure how much you do and don't know. So if I'm reinventing the wheel, just yell at me. It's fine. But basically, we wrap everything in classes, and this means that like you can then create an instance of that class and do things with it. You can also, it also has this idea of inheritance. So a class can be the child of another class.
I clicked something.
Yep, you did. It's okay.
Okay.
It's always interesting to see how people like interact with things. So
I click things way too often or hit enter way too fast.
No, you've
definitely
literally hit onto what I was talking about. So this idea of inheritance. So we have this main activity class, and our main activity class inherits. So if you go back to the main activity tab, on the there, yep. If you scroll up to the top of the file, it says main activity : app compact activity. So we're inheriting the app compact activity class, which inherits other classes, and basically the top class is this activity class that you just opened. So this other tab that we have open, and this is like the core of Android. This is one of the core components of an app. So you've got the same kind of you've kind of gone to the very bottom of this, and the point is your activity has access to everything that it inherits.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to write out all of the like basic boilerplate getting started code. That's all given to you by inheriting another class.
Real quick, we have a question from Han, and thank you, Han. Kotlin is single class inheritance like Java, right? Which
Correct.
would mean because Kotlin would export to Java and is part of, well, it's
Yeah,
different, but kind
it's
of like
compatible.
yes, okay.
It's probably the easiest way to say it. Like Kotlin is under the hood. Underneath it all,
Okay.
it's basically just Java. So you can't do anything completely crazy that you could otherwise do in Java. So
Okay.
yes, single inheritance, which means it can only have one class that it's inheriting from.
Got it. Okay.
So you have a parent class, but you can only ever have one. Unfortunately, they are all single parents. um, but you get this stack, and if you actually like go through the whole stack of what you're inheriting, you'll have lots and lots of classes stacked on top of each other. So when you clicked on that,
Yeah, this
yeah,
one does make me question because sources for Android API 32 platform not found. Does that mean where would this activity.class file be
yep.
hanging out?
So any file that's a .class file is actually compiled Java code. What's
Okay.
happened here is when you clicked on that, it couldn't find the source code because we haven't got it downloaded. So instead, it decompiled that code and it gave you this
Got it.
file. It generated this file for you on the fly, which is kind of cool because it means you can access these things, but it's not actually anywhere. Essentially, that file doesn't actually exist. It's just made
Got
it
it.
for you.
And yes, Ryan, I feel like I click something or I hit enter. It's like things I say way too often, meaning that I didn't mean but I clicked one of these buttons. I'm not going to
Yeah.
click it now, but this is what I
So
clicked, but like one of these.
yeah, so what you clicked on is these are your functions. So we're saying we've got override. So on line 19, for example, override fun oncreate. So by using the keyword override, we're saying we want to override a method that we've inherited from a parent. So somewhere in our stack of inheritance, that function Oncreate has been defined. And when you clicked
Mm.
on that button on that thing, it's taking you to where that's been defined. So in theory, you could look at it and go, well, actually, do I need to override it, or is it already doing the thing I want it to do?
Now I want to click something else. Oh,
So
okay.
okay, yeah. So you've got all sorts of like things the IDE is trying to help you to take you to different areas that you're
That's really
implicitly
helpful.
okay.
And
Yeah, it is good.
we got another question from Han of what is I feel like I'm gonna say it wrong. Latent,
Yeah,
latent,
that's that late in it. So
latent.
on line 16 and line 17, we have these, and these are two variables that we're defining. So we're defining a variable called app bar configuration, sorry, which is of the type app bar configuration. So that's the other thing about Kotlin is you can define types to your variables. And the reason why we use late in it is that's to say we haven't yet initialized that variable. So at the
Mhm.
moment, that variable is null, but we will initialize it. So it's telling the system that at some point it shouldn't be null. At some point it should have a value. And if it never has a value, something's gone wrong. So that's one of these like helper things that Kotlin does that Java doesn't do. In Java, stuff is either null or has a value. And in most languages, that's the case. Like if you define a variable, it's either going to have a value or it's not. But this gives you a third option of it will at some point have a value.
Ryan asked like uh def some par pass like Python in Python.
I think so. My Python is very rusty, and I think it's been about 15 years since I worked on anything in Python.
Ryan, join on Monday with Laura and let's ask her because Monday is our Python day. So
Oh,
let's
excellent.
ask her to see if she maybe knows, and we'll
Sounds
get her
good.
to watch this clip.
So there's no late in equivalent in Java. No, there isn't. You have to either define a variable or it's null. You can't say it's going to be defined at some point. And I have no doubt there's some very weird witchcraft going on in the background to make this a possibility in Kotlin. But that's kind of what Kotlin is. It's just a lot of witchcraft on top of Java. Uh, so yeah. So we've got two variables that we're defining, but then we've got this method Oncreate, which is a method that was being defined somewhere else. And when we clicked on it, it showed us it's being defined in activity. But we can actually override this and do something ourselves. And why might we want to do that? Well, an activity has this idea of states. So again, I'm not sure if states is something that you've looked at, but basically the system will tell this program that something has happened, and that will change its state. So we have onCreate, which literally means when the application is created, we'll tell you. And when that application is created, so when the user has launched the application and this activity has been created. So the user is now coming into the activity.
Okay.
And the system will say, look, this has happened. You can do something. And that would trigger the code that you write in this method.
Okay.
If you scroll down, there'll be others as well that we're overriding. So we do quite a lot of stuff in here, and we'll go through this stuff. But there's
Totally.
other ones as well. So on create option menu. So when the menu is being shown, we can do something here.
Got it.
On options item selected. So when a user clicks on a button in the menu, this method gets triggered, and we can then actually find out what item they clicked on and do something with that. So we have this whole kind of like engine of all these different things that can happen, and
Hmm.
we can capture those things and then do something with them.
Got it.
and that's basically the state engine.
Okay.
And there's a lot of them. There's like 30, 40 different things.
I like that it does create these by default just by us opening the program,
Yeah.
opening the app, because I feel like this would be something that even as I'm building an app for myself, which is not an Android app, just a web app, there's enough things as a newbie to get confused on
Yeah.
that it's very nice that they build this all for you. So that way you at least have the more tricky stuff taken care of, that you can like focus on what you actually want to build.
Exactly. So you know that basically, the Oncreate is quite a key method because it's where you're going to do any of your initialization, any of your setup
Hmm.
in that kind of instant as the user is coming into your activity. So, and then if you drill in, you can see that this is the Oncreate method for the fragment activity, and then if you drilled again, it will take you to the other and there's a whole
I won't go down
hierarchy.
that rabbit hole. I just wanted to click it once, and I'm gonna. Oh, does this take us back to the other one? Oh, it does. Okay, that was cool.
So you can, and you can. This is one of the things that I think really makes it easy to learn using this IDE, because you can actually spend time just poking about and getting to
Mhm.
understand. Oh yeah, okay, so that's linked to that, which is linked to that, which is linked. Whereas in the past you didn't have that, and it was kind of like you just had to read the docs and take for granted
Mhm.
that you had access to these things.
And this is also something that I just observing is these ones are locked, which means I'm guessing I can't make changes and save it because these
Exactly.
are like the hidden files
Yeah.
that go into making this. So very
Yeah.
cool.
So these are the bits that are actually given to you by the operating system. So they're not really actually part of your app. They're just part of the like framework that makes Android.
Very cool. Very cool.
So one of the first things we ever do when we're building an app is we're going to do some initialization in our Oncreate method.
Okay.
And there's a couple of different, again, there's a million ways that we could do this, but here what we're doing is we are setting, so in our Oncreate method we're giving the binding variable on line 22. We're giving that a value using this thing called activity main binding dot inflate, and then layout inflator. So if we click on the layout inflator variable, so the bit that's in the brackets,
Mhm.
so you've got inflate and then layout inflator
Mhm.
on line 22.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yep. And that should
Want you
highlight.
to
No,
highlight.
okay.
There we go.
There we
Oh,
go.
uh,
Oh, okay.
let me move. And Ryan, just as a quick thing, as I'm trying to get this,
Yep.
if you see these little doodads, it almost looks like a in eject CD or inject CD. That is what I'm seeing as this. If you click this, he asked if those are just visible. How do you know to connect with them? If I'm paraphrasing this right, these are auto connected. These are not something we would ever technically have to look at by using this IDE. Going to the top. Because they are part of the Android operating system. It's just to show you of like this little doodad linked into the fragment activity.java. And then if I want to go back, I can put the CD back in, is how I'm viewing these.
Yeah.
And we're back to where we were. And
Yeah. So
hopefully
that's it.
makes sense. But I need to make room for my layout inflator to show the description. Fetching documentation. Yay.
I think
Oh,
my dog. I don't know if you can hear my dog barking, but
yes.
he is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
I'm
okay. That
I'm
is,
just gonna close the door. He's fine.
I mean, he can always make an appearance if you want him to come on the
Oh,
show, but
okay. Yeah. Give me a second. I'll grab him.
yes.
He's only small.
I love seeing everybody's pets.
I'll just mute myself so you don't hear. Where are we?
Yes. Very excited for this. And for everyone out of the topic, let's see. Is there some functionality locked behind Jailbreak Android? Oh, Han, I will re-ask that when he gets back. I don't know. We will ask when he gets back. And thank you all for asking such good questions, because this is a lot of the learning process. Is I don't always know what questions to ask either. So, doggo, no doggo.
No dog. It was my wife coming home, so unfortunately, she gets dog privileges.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And Han asked a really good question again. Is there some functionality locked behind Jailbreak Android? Want something to cheat engine for Android?
So this week we kind of touched on this last week with rooting Android. So there are, essentially there are certain things you can and can't do, and if you want to do the things that you can't normally do, you have to root your phone to get access to them. So yes is the short answer. There is some functionality.
And also, last week we talked about how jailbreaking normally for some reason refers to iPhone and rooting refers to Android.
Yeah.
But they're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
So it's I find that very interesting.
We couldn't
But
possibly have standards and
no,
consistency.
with anything iPhone or Apple, no, of course not. It has to be different than everybody else, including chargers.
Yes, very true.
But okay, so if I go to layout, highlight.
Oh.
Yay.
So this is a good example of how you can kind of access the documentation within your app while you're building stuff. So this is what I wanted to show is you highlight kind of a variable or something that's part of the system, and it's going to give you an outline of the documentation about it. So it's going to tell you kind of when it was added to the system, and I'm going to click on it and probably break things, but that's fine.
No, I clicked on it and I'm laughing.
Oh no, that's embarrassing.
Let's try one of the other ones, and we'll just leave that right there. See if it will.
Yeah.
Okay, let's highlight. Oh, now it's like much longer.
Oh, it's having a moment. We'll leave it be. But the point is, it kind of builds in the documentation into the system, so you're supposed to kind of get a bit of a hint again about what things are doing what.
And if it's not giving you the right information, wait a minute and click again.
Apparently so.
That's like all things technology. So you never know. You never know.
But basically what we're doing here with all the code that's on the screen is we are setting up the UI. So we're creating a binding between the UI file, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and our activity. So we can then access the components that are in the UI. We can kind of change colors, handle button presses, do any of the kind of things that you might normally do in an app. And this is what this code does. And then if you scroll a little bit down to line 31, this is an example of where we're then doing something. So what we've done is we've created this binding variable, and this binding variable is what, as its name suggests, binds our app code to our UI.
Okay.
So we've got binding and then .fab. Well, fab will be a UI element that we've defined in our UI file, which we'll see. And we're set it so we can see that here it's saying that it's a floating action button, which I guess is where fab comes from. And we've set the on-click listener on that. So when a user clicks the button, it will trigger this code. Okay. And what we're doing here is making it say a message, replace your own action with your own action. Because this is just demo code to show you. This is where you'd put some code to run the button. So I think the best thing we do at this stage is run the app so you can see that code happening.
Okay.
So up the top here, there's a nice green plus run button, and you'll actually see to the left of that it says Samsung SM blah 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 blah. So it's already connected to your device because it's plugged in. So if you hit the run, and we bring up the tablet view that you
which
kind of
is
had
somewhere over here. Let's close all these. That's fine. Oh, I wonder if it device disconnected. Let me make sure it's unlocked, and then I will reconnect it and possibly run again. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and then if we just check, oh hello,
duplicate class found. Oh,
that's interesting. Just try running it again, because no, it's just it's good job, Android. Good job. That's probably going to take. Yeah, that's.
Navigate class include.
This shouldn't. This shouldn't happen, but of course it's going to, because we're live, and that is just the nature of it. Honestly, the easiest way might be to create a new, delete this project, create a new project.
Okay.
As we're just purely just to get the thing running.
Yes.
So
okay.
close out of this one,
and we'll go get a new project.
Create a new one, and we'll use the same. It should still be able to use basic activity. I don't really understand what's happened there, but we'll do that, and then click next. And
we'll just name this one Yay. Make it really easy.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right. Let it install all the things.
Yeah.
Am I making sure where'd it go? Why did you disconnect again? Is it like making it disconnect by running it?
Oh, it might be. Well, we'll see, because we can run it and then reconnect once it's run. It's installed on your phone anyway. That's the tablet. It's not a problem. Just a bit weird.
I might have clicked buttons too quickly. This is something I do very often.
It's all right. It's a good stress test.
I clicked it. I clicked it.
If you it's done the same thing. Oh, Google, why must you be like this?
Well, that's cool. I'm glad alarms are off on my tablet. So the tablet is still working. Oh, maybe...
Yeah. No, there's there's definitely we might have to that might be something we need to kind of delve deeper into. So unfortunately, we might not actually be able to run it right now, but we can finish going through everything, and we'll see where we get to.
And Ryan, I feel like we eventually, when I have OBS going and it can do all the alerts, is people can do a counter of how many times I say I clicked something when I wasn't supposed to. That would be fun.
I like that idea. a lot.
All right, I'm gonna try it one more time.
There's no harm in trying.
Nope.
No, it's not happy. Something is obviously broken, and we'll figure that out. So, but the point is, this is kind of our main activity, and this is where you would enter the application. You would go through this life cycle of when that screen is created, do something. When a user clicks on a button, do something, and you can define all these things. Now, the other thing we want to look at is the UI, the actual what would be displayed on the screen, which unfortunately should have been able to show you, but whatever. So you can see on the left hand side you've got your Java folder, but then we had this res folder. So further down, that one, yep. And this is basically all of the UI stuff, all of the kind of if you've got any like images that you want in your app, any kind of assets, all those sorts of things go in this folder. So the Java folder is purely for the code, and then this folder is for everything else. Which I get, okay, in this apps instance isn't going to be a lot, but there's stuff in there. So one of the things is your layouts. So if we go on the activity main.xml file, that will be the layout for your activity main, and it will actually render that as something that you can see. So we can have this kind of visual design type thing, and it tells you like, oh yeah, there's a, so basically that button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, the green
this one, the email.
Yeah. That would be your button that you were triggering with that replace with your own code, with your own activity thing. So you've got the design, and this is the design layout. This lets you kind of play around with all the settings for these objects. You can kind of play around with like rotation, and so you break things as much as you like.
Oh, this is exciting. I want to spend like all my time here.
Yeah, and this is obviously, and it's all drag and drop as well. So like you can take the text view and then drag it into your app and place it down. And, then kind of you have to set up the like layout to make it understand where it needs to be. And it gets a little bit broken, but because of the type of layout that you're using, again, they've recently updated these sample projects, and they're way more confusing than they need to be. But if we have a part 3, we might actually build something from scratch.
I feel like we need to have a part 3, especially once I get my app built. I feel like that would be a great part 3 to have you back on the show,
and that would be a good way to build something from scratch and kind of,
because this is really cool. Just getting to this point where people could see, like what they could do. I don't know why I'm like very confused about this like layout thing.
This is because it's basically using relative layout, so it doesn't work so well in this view. So if you go to the top right hand corner, you've got design, split, and code. If you go to split, this gives you the actual XML file on the left hand side, and then how that looks when it's been rendered on the other side. So you've clicked on your thing, and it's now taking you down to this edit text element, and that is literally the code for that element. Annoyingly, it's behind the action bar, so you can't see your edit. But if you were to click on the thing that says "Hello First Fragment,"
then I can change that one at least, right? No.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. So this is an example of an embedded file again. So that layout is a separate file here. So this is a much more simple file, which should work a bit nicer. So you can literally then click on, and then it's going to take you, I think, to another file. So there's another fragment. Just try clicking on the text or the button. Either works. There we go. And you see it's all kind of embedded in itself, and this is why I think it's very strange that they've made these basic activities so confusing, because there's a lot going on. But there we go. We've got down to the actual UI, and here you've got the actual view, and it says like, here's your text, and you'll be able to move these elements around on the screen as well, because they're basically
you're
using
a
constraints.
string going somewhere else.
Okay, so we need to go find that file. So
it doesn't do the cool thing that it was doing.
It doesn't.
Earlier.
No. So let's go find that file. Let's do that. So on the very left hand side, your projects is kind of minimized, but we want to read. There we go. So you've got all these different directories with all these different types of files, and it's the values one that you're going to want to look into. So you've got layout, and then there's a strings file, which relates to that @ string. And here's your text. and where it's defined. Now, you don't have to do this. You can actually write the text directly into that thing. But the reason why they recommend doing it like this is you can then do translations. So you can have a string file for each language that you want to support. And you've just got the one file that has to be translated as opposed to all the files.
Got it. So I got it to update.
Yep.
And I don't think next was, oh, next is in here. I don't know. I just want to go see it now.
Yep. And there you go.
Ha!
It'll take a second, but there you go. And that's kind of why they're splitting it out, because then maybe you want to be able to support this app in Spanish or French or Chinese, whatever it might be. You would just have a separate strings file that has the correct translated text.
Interesting. Okay, so now I'm like, I feel like you have to be back on the show because I have like this huge curiosity of wanting to like actually see something like go through, and having it as an Android app, at least the project I want to make, would be so cool. So is there anything else you want to show us in here before I kind of like
I think
deviate a
that
little
kind
bit?
of gives you a good overview of all the sections that make up an app. And then, the next thing would be to actually build something, but that's going to take a while.
Yeah, right. Well, that one might be like you're hanging out with us for a bit. Might be multiple streams. Yesterday, I had a 2-hour stream to get started on this. And the reason I am bringing it up is so I made a visual of it. But what I need to update is I'm going to move this away because I think it'd be good to still keep different versions of what I'm learning, but and option. So if I have, let's do this. I'm going to use Prisma for the back end. And then, so if I want to do this with Android, it would just be, instead of, I could keep the rest of this the same, except it would be using Android Studio.
Yep. So you'd literally just replace, what we'd call the front end of the application. But the database, it would be the same database. It could be the same everything else.
Okay. And you said that it does work with Node.js because it would just be connecting to Node.js.
Yeah, we'd have like that API interaction. So yeah, completely possible.
Yay. This is exciting. I am very, very excited. And for those who are joining today, and also just because I really want to show you Zachary, I feel like I go back and forth. I'm like, is it Zachary? Is everybody enters their, because right now the way it happens is I manually create these Twitter spaces on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday, it's really annoying because I copy and paste it. And I'm like, what if someone doesn't want to go in there? So the overall goal is to enter Twitter handles. Like somebody can go on the website and enter it and say, cool, I accept. I entered the Twitter space link. The database combines it, and the Twitter API will spit out this in auto post.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is, yesterday we were working on the React JavaScript web app, and now next I'm going to set up Prisma and then MySQL. I have a feeling there's going to be something I need between MySQL and the Twitter API, but
it'd probably be Prisma again.
Oh, I'll put that as a question.
Yeah, you'd kind of have it coming back out from the database through Prisma to the Twitter API.
Okay. We'll find out. It's fine. This is a huge learning curve. So this is what we will be working on. So once I get the app built, then I will let you know. But I feel like we can definitely get it scheduled and all of that, because that gives me a deadline as well.
Sure. Yeah, sounds
And
good.
yay, this has been great. And thank you for coming on the show today, Zachary. It's
Of course.
so much knowledge drops. And before we end the stream today, y'all, anyone have any other questions? Yay for Zachary coming back later on, because I'm I honestly went to go get a tablet this week, and I'm through and through an iPhone and Mac user. Y'all have heard that before, but I'm like, this is actually really cool. I now want to build an app, like really bad, a real one. Well,
We should be
thank
able to do it.
you. Yay. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day, night, evening, and weekend. Bye bye.
Bye.